Hi, I'm Anthony Scaramucci, and welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show.
Anthony Scaramucci, welcome to the Sarah O'Connell Show. How are you today?
I'm terrific. I appreciate you bringing me on. I like your background. I like the signage. You're looking good, Sarah.
Thank you. Likewise, it's a pleasure to have you here today. I want to go back to the beginning. You grew up in New York and you studied economics, and then you ended up working at Goldman Sachs. When you were a kid, what did you dream and aspire of doing when you were an adult?
So, it's interesting because I was in a blue collar neighborhood in a blue collar family, and
Right.
there was a lot of stress related to money in our house. And so the only thing I wanted to do when I was a kid was have my own business. And I was absolutely convinced if I had my own business, that that was some kind of surefire ticket to the American dream and financial success. So I'm going to fast forward. I'm now 23 years old and I'm working for a law firm. I'm in law school and it's the summer and I'm sitting at the guy's house and I said, well, I want to have my own business and I want to be my own boss. And this man, may his soul rest in peace, he hit me over the head with a mallet and he said to me, are you crazy? You're never your own boss. If you have your own business, you're going to have clients. And guess what? Your clients are end up being your bosses and you're going to have employees. And if you set up the business right, you're going to be serving them as much as they're serving you. And I remember that being a big moment for me. It was like a rock hitting me in the side of the head where I recognized, you know what? You're really your own boss. But that was my number one principal goal. And I wrote down on my notebook when I graduated from law school that the day that I paid off my student debt, which frankly took me 7 years, it was $150,000 of student debt, I would immediately go into my own business. And that's what I did in November of 1996. So this will be the 24th year of my odyssey as an entrepreneur.
That's amazing. And so you went to Harvard Law School. And is it true that you were there at the same time as Barack Obama and you even used to play basketball together?
We were there together. We played basketball together. I was there with Neil Gorsuch. I don't know if you remember the Supreme Court justice as well. So I was the underachiever in the group, Sarah, but I'm doing the best I can. What can I say?
Oh, you're on the Sarah O'Connell Show today and the others aren't, so I think you're doing pretty well.
Well said.
So you were on Trump's Executive Transition Committee, and then you're appointed the White House Communications Director. How did all that come about? Because you're running your own businesses. How did you sort of lean more into politics?
Well, listen, it's a good question. I had no plans to go to Washington. Mr. Trump had won the election. It was the Wednesday after that election. We were in his office. He insisted that I think about taking a job in the administration. And I said it wasn't for me. I was hosting Wall Street Week. I had my own business. But now he's the president-elect of the United States. And so then he does what he typically does. And by the way, these are the things I liked about him. I don't want to demonize Mr. Trump in victory or defeat. I just want to tell you the facts. And so I did like this about him. He was very impromptu. He's a very charming guy when he wants to be. And so he just out of the blue names me to the transition committee that Friday after the election. I pick up the phone, I call him, I say, what the hell was that? I said, you don't even tell me? I got to find out from Fox News. He goes, oh, relax. You're going to have a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. You're going to have fun. And so I joined that transition committee. But what I didn't understand at the time, and that's my naivete, is the viciousness of Washington. And the viciousness, money is one thing, Sarah, because when money's involved, people's minds are keenly focused on the money. I call that the green team because American money is green. If I'm transacting with you, you're buying something from me. The goal is we're trying to create a win-win for each other. So we all know what the stated objectives are. But in Washington, there's absolutely no green team. You don't know what the hell's going on. Certain people want to sit close to the president in the West Wing. Others want access to Air Force One, and you don't know. It's all this picayune stuff related to power. And I frankly got blindsided by it. I was not experienced for it. I was supposed to be the president's OPL director, which is an acronym for his public liaison, the Office of Public Liaison, effectively to be the president's chief networking officer. Probably would have been a good job for me. Reince Priebus and a gentleman by the name of Steve Bannon, they had no interest in me being in that job. And so they started to do the Washington two-step process of undermining me. All they had to do was pick up the phone and say, hey, Anthony, we actually hate your guts. We don't want you in that job. And I would have been okay with it. I was like, all right, look, it's not the right job. Let's move on. But they started to undermine me. They started to write these opposition research stories about me. And then I did something really stupid, which I want to share with your viewers. I got my pride and my ego involved. Once Priebus and Bannon were coming at me, it must be my Italian DNA, Sarah O'Connell. Do you know what Italian Alzheimer's is, Sarah?
Tell me.
Yeah, we forget everything but the grudges. That's what Italian Alzheimer's is. And so, I was peed. And I said, okay, I'm going to take these guys out. I called Mr. Trump, then the President Trump. I said, hey, these are two bad guys. If you ever want to get rid of them, call me. I'll take care of it. Lo and behold, he calls me and he puts me in an ill-advised spot. I shouldn't have been his comms director. I didn't have the skill set to be his comms director, but I desperately wanted the job because I wanted to knock Priebus and Bannon out the door into Pennsylvania Avenue. And I overreacted, took the job, made a mistake with the reporter, which has been well documented, but was really frickin' funny. I mean, I said something about Steve Bannon, which, he probably can't do unless he's into hot yoga, but that's fine. But let's face it, Steve's a moron. He's already got himself arrested, and he's one of the evil archetypes of our modern political society. So I more or less got right what I was saying. I just shouldn't have said it the way I said it. It got me fired. I never blamed anybody for my firing other than myself. And I tried to stay loyal to the president, Sarah, because I'm a good Republican. And, I had a relationship with him. And even though he was acting in a way that was abnormal, I was like, okay, let me try to normalize him. Okay, he's gaslighting. Let me try to normalize him. And then it became impossible. By August of 2019, I said, okay, this guy's nuts. It's Trump Noble. It's like the HBO series Chernobyl. He's melting down. And the Republicans will have to make a decision whether they clean it up or cover it up. I got that wrong. I said that they would clean it up. They would seek his removal. They didn't. They stayed with him. And it's also led them over the barrel of Niagara Falls. I got right that he was going to lose if they stayed with him. But I really thought that they were going to get him out of there. You know what I mean?
So you were the head of communications for 11 days, well documented. Are you, in retrospect, looking back on it, relieved that you got out when you did?
No. In retrospect, yes, but at the time it was very painful.
Yeah.
There I was fired. It was humiliating. It was embarrassing. I got lit up by all the late night talk show comedians. I was on Saturday Night Live. It was intense for a period of time. And then what happens to you, because you become a public figure, they two-dimensionalize you. And then all of a sudden you become the caricature that the media wants you to be,
right.
Which none of us really are. You have to go back and reflate yourself. You get stamped down into 2 dimensions, and then you have to blow yourself back up again. And so in hindsight, though, I'm glad I was fired because it probably saved my marriage. It probably saved my career. But I don't like BSing people. At the time, it was regrettable and extremely painful. But the good news is things have a way of working out. I think it's a big message for people that follow you because it's a case study in resiliency. When bad things are happening to you, I want you to imagine my ass getting fired from the White House on July 31st and rolled in broken glass by the American and international media. If you can put that into your gearbox, you feel better about yourself. It was a very rough time for me.
As you say, you were a lifelong Republican and you supported Donald Trump. I guess growing up in the 1980s and in New York especially, he was, you thought of him as this billionaire and this successful entrepreneur that started all these businesses, and you only knew really what he projected. And then at what point was it sort of clicked in your head that he wasn't perhaps who he was trying to convince everybody that he was?
Well, that's the great danger, and I have to own that. And so he was acting abnormal, and we used to giggle, and we used to do cognitive dissonance and pretend that he was normal, but he was abnormal. And so I guess what happens to you in life, and you see somebody that's successful, you reckon that some of their eccentricities are just that, they're eccentricities. There's nothing more malevolent or nothing more dangerous. But unfortunately, in hindsight, I got that wrong, and I'm at least one of the people that was willing to admit that I got it wrong. I went to the opposite side and started speaking out against him at his highest approval numbers. Go back and look, 2019, everyone surefire he was going to get reelected. I went to the World Economic Forum in January of 2020. I said he would be roundly defeated by whoever the Democratic nominee was. Everyone laughed at me, scoffed at me, and said, no, that's not the case. He's going to win by a landslide. But what I knew about him is that because he's crazy, if something happened, if there was a crisis, and unfortunately with the American presidency, you're in a perpetual crisis, something's going to happen. It's the Cuban Missile Crisis. It's the financial crisis.
Right, yeah.
It could be a hostage situation. In this case, it became a pandemic. And so he wasn't capable of handling that pandemic. And ultimately, the referendum was about that. If you look at the exit polling, you look at the margins there, it was people didn't feel safe with him running the country during this global pandemic.
And then so you publicly voiced your support for President-elect Joe Biden and Kamala Harris. How did you feel when the results started coming in and Joe Biden wasn't only winning states, but it was also flipping them as well?
Well, listen, I don't think I was as happy as Melania. I mean, I have to give her the top polling. I mean, she was probably the happiest person in the country, if not the world. But I think I'm in the top 5. I mean, I have been walking on sunshine and tiptoeing around the house with joy in a way that I couldn't possibly imagine, because I recognize the systemic threat that he was presenting to the American society, the global society, and I knew that he was a danger. And so we've got 60-ish days left with him, and I still see him as a danger. He's a malevolent guy, and so he'll probably try to do some type of existential harm on the way out. You know, for your listeners and viewers, there's something called the Nero Decree. And the Nero Decree was issued by Adolf Hitler in the waning days of the Reich. And he wanted the generals to flood the coal mines and bring down the electrical grid around the cities. And they asked him why. And he said, well, if we're not going to have the Reich under my reign, this 1,000-year Reich, then I don't want it to be for anybody. I want to wipe it out. And so there's in demagoguery and this sort of false prophet of leadership, there's always some nihilism and so always some destruction. You know, the people hate themselves in a way that you and I can't fully describe. And so that self-loathing, he's going to go after the American public. It's going to be a sordid and sad thing for the United States.
So far, Trump has refused to concede. He sort of accidentally done it in a few tweets where he acknowledged that Joe Biden won. Do you think he will leave gracefully in January, or do you think he's going to be dragged out? What's going to happen?
Well, the first thing I want to say, I want to stipulate I got it wrong, because if you asked me it 2 weeks ago, I would have said, sure, he's going to concede because it's in his best interest, because he's got all these lawsuits. He's got a criminal investigation going on, and it would behoove him to concede graciously so he could go out on the right note. But he's not doing that, and so he's now making up lies. National Security Advisor John Bolton, former ambassador to the UN, said yesterday, this is such a marvelous conspiracy. It was so well executed that there's no proof or any evidence that there was any type of fraud anywhere in the country. So we have more people in the White House that have COVID-19 cases that have been diagnosed with COVID-19 than we have that people that have actually fraudulently voted in the election. And so, you know, this is bizarre behavior. Somebody like Michael Cohen, his personal attorney, would have said, yes, this is exactly predictive. This is exactly what it's going to do. But I thought he would hit an override switch and say, well, wait a minute, I got to get myself out of these legal situations. So now I think he's digging a bigger hole for himself. And I think that by January 21st, he will be gone. The exact time is January 20th at 12 p.m. He will be gone. And it'll be a great day for America. It'll be a great day for the world. But we also have to worry about this Republican Party, because this party is a different party than the one that Mr. Trump inherited. It's sort of a bizarro form of itself. It's demagogic, it's nationalistic, it's xenophobic, it has dog whistling of racism. And so I'm just wondering if this disfigurement of that party is going to lead to its death, or could it somehow be reformed? And you know, I'm telling people what I honestly believe. We're one election away from Hungarian style authoritarianism. If we're not careful, we have to beat this back. We have to restore the institutions of our democracy. We have to have faith in the people of the United States. We need to gear up our educational system and make people smarter and more aware of the issues before us, and we have to beat back demagogues like Donald Trump. And I apologize to people for having supported him in the past, but I'm also suggesting to people that we have to create an off-ramp for others. We have to explain to people how dangerous he was. Mark Twain had one of the best lines about human nature, Sarah. Mark Twain once said, "It is easier for me to fool you than to convince you that I fooled you."
Right.
And so once the con takes place, if you turn to the person and say, "Hey, by the way, you were conned," they're in disbelief of that. They want to stay true to that false promise. And so we have to work on that for the American people. There's 70 plus million people that voted for him. I think that's more of an expression of their dissatisfaction with the system. I think it's a dissatisfaction with their lives and their feelings about their own personal economic situation more than anything else. But having said that, they did vote for him, and we have to recognize that, acknowledge that, and hopefully we can come up with the right policies in our country that will diffuse their anger and get them back on track with the rest of the American people.
And do you think it's possible for Joe Biden to start bringing the entire country back together?
I do. I think he has that type of personality. He's a likable guy. The nicknames that President Trump tried to land on him didn't really work because he has a high likability quotient.
Yeah.
He's also at age 78. I think he's a guy that's been through a lot. He's had certain and several personal tragedies. He's lost a wife to an accident. He's lost a son to an accident, or I think a daughter, I'm not sure, but he also lost a son recently to brain cancer. He's a healing type of a person. He's a nice man. I've met him several times. I have a lot of respect for him. And he was a better choice for the American people and for the world. And so we'll see him as president in 2 short months, and I will wish him well.
Changing the subject slightly, you cameoed in 2010's Wall Street 2 Money Never Sleeps. And rumor has it you also paid to have your company featured in the movie too?
Well, I mean, that was a false rumor, actually, because
Oh, really?
I didn't have to pay. I mean, somebody said I paid $100,000,
Yeah.
but I had done well more than that in work for the film. You know, I had reviewed the script. I had worked on set location. I worked on lingo. I spent many hours training the actors. Spent a lot of time with Josh Brolin on that movie, and Shia LaBeouf. I don't know if you remember Shia LaBeouf, but anyway. So in exchange for that, rather than paying me, they put me in the movie, and they gave me some signage in the movie. And so that was probably worth $100,000. So I think that's how that came about. But in hindsight, it was one of the more fun things I've done in my life. And so I'm super glad that I did that. And that is unfortunately a way younger version of me, Sarah. Okay. You know, I mean,
So you haven't aged today.
Well, that's because of Botox and hair dye, Sarah. I've cornered the market. If you need Botox or hair dye in North America, you have to come through my garage.
I'll be going there soon, I'm sure. I mean, I'm actually 87, but I just find if I never smile, that it never wrinkles the moneymaker. So
See, there you go. Well, you look good.
thank you.
You look good. You don't look a day over 30. So there you go.
Appreciate it. And so you've released 4 books to date. Have you got any plans to write another one at any point?
Yes. So I'm in the process of thinking about another book. Hopefully, I've talked to a publisher. I think the book is going to be about our media, the intersection of media, politics, and business, and where people sit on that spectrum, and how you navigate cancel culture, and also how you try to stay resilient in difficult times. You know, I think that the one thing that none of us recognized when we were younger is the magnifying glass of social media. So every mistake, every sentence, every rude remark is recorded now. You know, we have a smartphone, which acts as a television studio or movie studio or radio studio. And before you know it, everybody's personal life is out there before the world.
I ask every guest this question. Can you tell me a fun fact about you? Something people may not know. It can be a hobby, a party trick, anything like that.
A fun fact about me. Well, you know, I mean, my wife is going to be really mad at me if I tell you this, but I will tell you this. Okay. I have more than one sex toy in the house. How's that?
Okay.
Is
Are
that
they
fun enough?
duplicates? Are they in different colors?
No, yeah, they're just different types of experimentation. Is that
Okay,
fun
so-
enough?
Yeah, that works definitely. So
Okay,
you've
all
got
right,
a room
good.
that's got a
I
swing in
know.
it.
Yeah, I mean, there's no swing in the house, but we got our share of sex toys.
That's fantastic. I'm very pleased for you. Now you also have a brand new podcast called Mooch FM. Can you tell us about it? Where can we hear it? What day is it released?
Yeah, so it's on every podcast application that you could get your podcast from, Apple Podcast or any of the other podcasting that goes on the other devices. And so I put it out every Friday. I try to get an eclectic mix of people. I've got people from your side of the pond, my side of the pond, and we are talking about politics, but we're also talking about science. We're talking about the economy, observations of what's going on in the cultural zeitgeist. And it's very, very fun for me. And I'm getting a lot out of it because I'm meeting people over the podcast and we're having these rigorous discussions. One of them, the editor-in-chief of Inc. magazine, I guess it was a compliment. He said, wow, this guy is totally different, meaning me. I'm totally different than he would have thought based on that two-dimensionalization of my personality from the media. So I guess that was a compliment, and it was sort of a backhanded compliment, but I'll take it.
Can you tell me what else you're working on? Have you got any plans for 2021? Any other projects or things you'd like to do?
Well, I'm going to write a book. I haven't started that yet, but I'm hoping to start that by January. I've got my conference business, which I hope once the vaccine has been deployed, we can get back to emerging stronger from the pandemic and having a robust conference. We'll send you an invitation to some of them.
Please do.
We do one in Abu Dhabi. We're likely to do one in Europe, hopefully by 2022. And obviously we've done one annually here in North America, but unfortunately we missed 2020 because of the pandemic. So I want to get back to doing that. And then I'm growing my business. We have a couple funds that we'll be launching, and I'm going to stay on the periphery, but I think I'll be reasonably politically active over the coming 2 to 3 years as this political drama unfolds. I'm dedicated to the extinguishment of Trumpism and the demagoguery and the perversity of it. I'm trying to explain to people that this is just not the right guy. I get the message. I understand the dilemma in the country, but this is the wrong messenger. This is a destructive, malevolent guy. And so I'm going to stay on it because I like fighting bullies. You know, that's been something I've enjoyed since I was a little kid. You know, I grew up in a neighborhood and, you know, my grandmother would have let me back in the house if you didn't punch the bully in the nose. So I have no problem standing up for people that are afflicted and put upon by an ignoramus like Donald Trump.
I really appreciate all the work you're doing, and you know, just letting people know that it's okay to change your mind or reassess your opinion on someone. You don't have to blindly follow people all the time.
Yeah, I think it's important. I think that's a very important point. You have to make sure that you're always flexible and open-minded. If you get locked into something, you don't have to be overly locked. It's not a sign of disloyalty if the people that you're supporting are actually doing the wrong things. There's no such thing as asymmetric loyalty in our society. Of course, we have to unconditionally love our parents and our spouse and our children, but not political figures. If they're not acting appropriately, if you made a mistake, it's okay to speak out about it.
Now, I apologize in advance for this question, but people always seem to ask you this. Would you do the Fandango?
I can do it. Yeah.
Can you?
Yes, no question. Well, I have to remember that song came out in 1977, 78. I was 14 years old. And it was very important for me to learn how to do the Fandango because, you know, people would ask me that. I said, yeah, no question. I can absolutely do the Fandango. I know the moves of the Fandango. And that was a big song of my youth. It's come back into my life now because of every time, you know, on Twitter, I can see Freddie Mercury. They zap him into my Twitter feed, if you will. But yeah, I could definitely do the Fandango. And it's one of the all-time best songs. Yeah. And, you know, what's interesting about my last name, it means small skirmish. It could also be a pejorative in terms of clownish behavior. So some of my detractors like to point that out. But I think I've redefined the word in some ways too, which is like, how about I don't give a shit? And I think that is a big thing you have to do in life. I don't care if you're a king, a queen, a member of the royal family, rich or poor. Your grandmother's cliche that what other people think about you is none of your business is something you need to live by. Well, if you can do that, and it's very hard for people to do, myself included, but if you can do that, you live a much happier life and you can get closer to the dreams that you are aspiring to.
I love that, and that's very well said. And I'm looking forward to going and picking up all your books and getting some good investment advice as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, look, I've written a couple of fun books, you know,
Yeah.
and I hope the next one will be equally fun. And I appreciate being on your show. Thank you for having me.
Brilliant. So I've got one final question for you, if that's okay. So have you got any messages for people watching the Sarah O'Connell Show and your fans around the world?
Well, I mean, here's my message. I think one of them was what I just said. You know, don't let what other people think of you distract you, particularly in the age of social media. And then the thing I live by, and this would be my core message, and I actually get up in the morning and think of this every day. It's from the legendary 95-year-old American comedian Mel Brooks. Do you know who Mel Brooks is, Sarah?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Yeah, Young Frankenstein, Blazing Saddles,
Brilliant filmmaker.
all of these great, the producers, all these great fun satirical movies. And there's a big documentary coming out on him in HBO soon. Mel has one great reflective saying that I repeat to myself every day, and especially the day I got fired from the White House. You want to hear this saying?
I'd love to.
Relax. None of us are getting out of here alive. I think that sums the whole thing up, you know?
It's very true.
Relax into life, enjoy it, enjoy the ups and downs, and recognize that none of us are getting out of here alive.
That's excellent advice. Anthony Scaramucci, thank you so much for coming on my show today. It's been a delight talking to you.
Same here. I enjoyed it. Thank you, Sarah.
And thank you to everybody watching at home. Be sure to share, subscribe, give this video a big thumbs up, and leave lots of lovely comments. We'll see you all again soon for another episode of the Sarah O'Connell Show. Bye.
Thank you, my friend. Be well.
Thank you.